Story RH, the podcast that makes a long story short.
Welcome to all.
History is made of stories.
In this episode, we'll be exploring to what extent the HR director should be involved in operational aspects, working closely with their teams.
I'm an HR director. I focus on the noble aspects of the job, the theory and strategy, and steer clear of operations. Subsidiarity is an excellent principle, which I recommend regularly. A healthy base for management.
And yet, is it important to get your hands dirty with operations or in the field with your teams when business demands it? The HR director, at the crossroads of strategy and operations, what's the story?
The question isn't as trivial as it may seem. It bears asking for any executive or even middle management position as part of the simple debate, do or have done.
First, let's make something clear. No two director of human resources positions are the same. Given the multitude of factors such as company size, development stage, and industry which can all heavily impact the scope and responsibilities of the job.
If you're the DHR at a small company, you're much more likely to be required to get your hands dirty because there are simply fewer resources.
Whereas, at the headquarters of a big multinational, you may have an army of resources available, making it easier to distance yourself from the events taking place in the field.
Now that we've got that out of the way, it's also worth mentioning that the Director of Human Resources is a manager, one who is subject to the basic principles of management like any other.
And one of the fundamentals of management is that, while you don't have to be an expert to manage a team, you do need to have a basic understanding of the job. It's a question of pertinence and credibility.
And if you can do the job, then you help out when necessary. It's not about doing the job for others, it's about being there when you're needed, when there's a temporary rush, for example, or simply because your experience is useful, or there's a difficult situation to handle in which your position might help.
The DHR plays a critical strategic role, of course, both in terms of long-term planning and topics relating to corporate culture.
But they are also responsible for ensuring HR's strategic alignment, defining and implementing the HR policy that makes the company's strategy possible.
As such, the DHR is not only responsible for setting a policy heading but also for ensuring its application within a given framework of constraints and available resources. So, they have to define and roll out an HR structure and resources to make that possible.
And it's not enough to simply dole out responsibilities within the department. Firstly, because delegating responsibilities is not the same as getting rid of them. This brings us once again to the basic obligations of a manager, which fall to the DHR as well, monitoring ongoing projects, results, feedback, and any required corrective action.
And secondly, because in addition to their role as an individual manager with respect to direct reports, the DHR also has to lead the whole HR team and bring it to life, all while ensuring consistency and mobilizing employees, etc.
This goes beyond the leadership aspect inherent to any management position. It's a technical aspect of HR.
Ensuring that the concepts, like the concept of skills, for example, which applies to nearly every field of HR, are consistent in all of the department's actions.
And making certain that short-term decisions in certain areas don't jeopardize the medium or long-term outlook of another HR field, sowing dissonance into the HR policy as a whole.
And let's not forget one final aspect. We nourish our vision and understanding by doing. If we're too far removed, a rift can easily develop. For something as basic as gauging whether you're going too fast with HR transformations and what pace the HR teams can manage.
To recap, the position of Director of Human Resources includes a strategic dimension, but it goes beyond designing a policy to include its application. And this requires a minimum investment in operations, if only to avoid disconnect and ensure consistency. Is that right?
Exactly right. Way to make a long story short. Story RH, the podcast that makes a long story short.